Greetings, fellow seekers of truth, wisdom, and light, and all that jazz. This is Reverend Elliot coming to you live from the city of New York, where the weather seems to match the mood. It's glum, it's rainy, it's cloudy, it's overcast. We're not doing too well here in the city. We had, as you probably by now know from the news, a horrible shooting occurred. And I don't even want to get into the fact that there's some people praising it. You know, it's a very bizarre world, and that's one of the reasons that I do stick with Ask One Radio, is that the people there in Ask One, it's all about positive energy, and we need positive energy. You know, back after the attack on the World Trade Towers here in New York, there was a company. There's a company that sells occult items, and they used to be known as Abyss, and then they changed their name to Azure Green. I guess it's a more positive sounding name, but I've been buying from them for years to get stuff to, you know, I just, you know, I make my own incense, I mix my own oils, I do all kinds of stuff, I blend inks. Well, anyway, after that massive attack on New York, which killed a few people I knew, you know, it's almost like everybody in New York knew somebody who got it that day. They sent me a package, unbidden. They just sent me a package filled with esoteric items to promote positive energy. And I spread those around to people here in the community because we needed that at the time. And this is, you know, it's a much smaller scale, but it's still life brutally taken. And, you know, that's affecting the whole town. You'd think that a city like New York, which is known as a tough town, it just, you know, I've known my share of people who came here to New York to be successful and rich and famous, and they left crying, you know. So, I mean, it is a town that can beat you down, but this guy just blew into town with a rifle and decided to take out people who did nothing to him at all. It's just so sad, you know, and yet, you know, the pervasive mood is one of depression, to tell the truth. It's not even anger. It's no longer. It's no longer something that hurts people in that sense and enrages them. It's just frustration. So we're going to try to do our best to overcome that with positive energy, and doing this show is part of that. The question has been around for centuries: why do bad things happen to good people? There's a karmic answer, which you might be able to find at my website, which has an interesting talk about karma. Karma is something so grossly misunderstood. Too many people think that karma is a celestial revenge machine, which of course it isn't. You know, it's more than that. And if you go to my website, magick-works.com, magick-works.com, and no, I don't make money on hits. I haven't, you know something, there's not a thing on the internet that I do that I've monetized. And I'm glad, because A, I don't need the money, and B, that changes your attitude towards things. But anyway, go there, look at the page on karma. There's a talk there that's about an hour long, which means most people aren't going to listen to it. But it's worth listening to. The thing is, shortly after this person did what he did here in the city, that was at 51st Street, which, you know, I live on 50th, on the other side of town, but you see, it's close. Right after the person did that, there was a rather fuzzy photograph of him in the newspapers, and the online. You know, when I say the newspapers, I mean online. And I ran that through some software to sharpen it up, and I got an excellent picture of the guy, and I put it on Twitter in 2 places. Almost immediately, it had been seen by thousands of people. Now, I don't monetize my Twitter feed, and I don't want to, But if I had monetized my Twitter feed, that would have been a bonanza for me. And I would have given that every penny away. I don't want blood money. I don't, let me put it to you this way. This has been my philosophy for ages. Of all the things people need to survive, money is the easiest thing to get. And I've put that to the test. I went to a stretch of New York City off Central Park West, on Central Park West, near the reservoir where very well off people go to jog. And I walked up and down the street asking people for money. And I got money. I donated that to a church, but they gave me money. The next day I went to the same spot and I walked up and down the same space at the same time, asking people if they would just listen to me. And nobody took me up on that. Now, I've done things like that before that people think are crazy. I went to the reservoir for a reason. I was once walking around the reservoir opposite the direction people run in, only because I wanted to get to the east side, and that's a nice walk to do to the east side. And there was a really, really raggedy homeless guy walking towards me, meaning, and he was also walking towards runners who really went out of their way to avoid him. Now, I'm not telling you this to show what a saint I am, because I'm not. I'm sure you can find that out with a little research. But this man, he looked so forlorn and so lost, and he was walking around with his hand out, and everybody just ran away from him. And when I got up to him, when we crossed each other, I shook his hand, and that's all he wanted. He brightened up, he looked happy, and he said thank you, and he walked on his way sprightly. Now these are little things that we can do. There's so many little things we can do for people, and that's that's not the easiest thing in the world to do in a town like New York. But we're a town of almost strangers. We don't tend to know each other. I know the people here in this building where I live in, we all know each other. It's a small building, and we know each other in the community. I was very active in the community because I ran a newspaper in the community for over 20 years. My wife and I had a very popular newspaper, which of course means that many of the one day, in the same day, I was yelled at for being a right-wing fascist, and the next and 20 minutes later I was yelled at for being a bleeding heart liberal. Now what do? That's New York. You might as well, you're not going to please people, so just do the best you can, and that's what we're doing. That's the whole thing. Because when bad things happen to good people, we can't be so cold-hearted as to say, well, that's the way the cookie crumbles, so this town is in a funk right now. You can feel it. If you walk around this city, you'll feel it. I walk around the city, and people are taking extra pleasure when you say thank you for something. So there you go. What can I tell you? That's I am the prince of positive energy, which is a very difficult thing to maintain, considering I've had the kind of a life that only Charles Dickens could have written. I love to tell this story because it's funny to me, is that I had a little problem dealing with things in life many years ago, and I went to a therapist who ended up crying when we were talking and said, I can't believe you survived all that. So, I don't want to go into that. I certainly don't want to write a book about it because I don't care. I mean, your troubles are as bad as my troubles. Trust me. We all have our troubles. There's an old Jewish fable about a magician who comes to town and removes everybody's troubles and sticks them all in a big pile. And then he tells everybody to go just take back a share. And they're all happy to take back their own troubles. They don't want any more. So we'll deal with it, and we'll deal with all that. And tarot is a way to help deal with that. But we need to overcome the negative, dark aspects of life. I don't want to get into the biblical religious aspects of it all, but yeah, the belief that we're fallen creatures sometimes I believe it deeply. Other times, this is the same week that we had a gentleman, a former Marine, take out a weapon and use it to save people. So I'm not going to go into a weapon thing, this is the way it goes. People can be good, people can be bad. We all have a little of that in us. We just have to balance it. The key to life is balance. Unbalanced mercy is evil because it lets you be a doormat. It lets you have people walk all over to you. And unbalanced strength is severity, and that's no good either. That's the great mystical arcanum, which is you've got to balance these forces. And that you'll find in the Kabbalistic tree of life. And you can find out about that on my website too. I won't tell you where to go. You'll find it. I'm not here to plug that. I just want you to remember that there is that wonderful talk on karma, which is something that is so misused that it's worth knowing about. Let's get to the call.